afternoon and welcome everybody. Pleased to see such a great turnout for EMI. I know it's a very popular topic today because last year we had one session and this year we had to extend it to two, and we have 3 speakers in each session. So we have a very full session, so that's why we're starting on time. It's going to go very fast. So the title, I have just a very short overview type presentation just to frame what EMI is and ARC's definition of EMI. And the title of the presentation is, Can Enterprise Manufacturing Intelligence Make You Smarter? That was my theme, so I've seen it a couple of times today, I think. There are 2 parts, part 1, part 2, and they both should be very dynamic and excellent sessions. We have some great lineup of speakers. So I hope the sessions have been going well for everyone today, and that you're getting lots of information and creative ideas. Don't forget to turn your cell phone off. There is an app. I'm just going to introduce the speakers by their name and their title and company, and you can read the app if you want to know more about their background. So we do have some excellent and interesting case histories today, as I said, and they'll show you some real examples of what manufacturers are really doing in this area and how important it is today. So I said my presentation is really just to frame EMI, what it is, what we're meaning by it. I'll talk a little bit about the drivers and benefits, more so in part 2. We have a survey, so I'm saving the survey for part 2 to give you a reason to come back. So I'm going to try to stay as close to schedule as possible. So, well, what is EMI? What's our definition of EMI? Well, it's really taking all of the data and integrating all that data and aggregating it and managing the data from plants or from other sources that may affect the plant. It's also the data contextualization, the modeling, and I'm told that these are very, very important functions for EMI. And also, it's making sure that the data is quality data, is it good data. It's also about the analytics. You know, everybody's talking about analytics today and how important that is. And the analytics and those tools are very important for EMI. And it's also about the visualization, which is also an important part of EMI. The dashboards and the things and the way that you display the data. We'll talk a little bit about that real quickly. So we've heard a lot about the Internet of Things and EMI. So where could EMI reside? It can reside in the cloud. It can reside at corporate sites. It can reside with the suppliers. You can have different versions of EMI. You can integrate and connect all of the data. So EMI is not new. We mentioned that. It's becoming mainstream, I think, because of some of these newer technologies that we've been hearing about throughout this forum. Starting with the Internet of Things, the improved visualization, the analytic tools that are coming out that are making it much easier to get the information, the cloud computing, and big data. So what do you think? Do you think big data is driving EMI, the cloud? I think all of this is driving EMI. And the other thing is the big data is increasing, and that's what we're hearing a lot about that as well. So one of the things I looked at is, what is intelligence? Well, if you looked at the dictionary definition of intelligence, intelligence is the ability to understand and deal with new or trying situation and deal with that knowledge. But intelligence is always also the ability to apply knowledge to manipulate one's environment, which I really think that that is a key element of EMI. So EMI is about taking the data and turning it into contextualized information that is then into knowledge and then into intelligence. So I think it's really about the intelligence. A lot of people keep focusing on the big data, but I think it's more about the intelligence. So what's fueling the intelligence? Internet of Things and data are fueling intelligence. And when I'm talking about data, I actually mean all data, big and small data. There's a lot of data in the plants. People that have been collecting data for years and years in the manufacturing plants have a lot of big data. So this data is being fueled by the Internet of Things, by all of the sensors that are connected and things. There's a lot more devices to collect information from, and to be able to use that information is really important. I know I've had plant managers say, we're collecting all this information, but we're not doing anything with it. Well, EMI is the opportunity to do something with it. So, really, I say, a lot of people think big data is the mantra. Well, intelligence is the new mantra. That's my message today. People said to me, we're drowning in data, but we're starving for the information. So it's important, though, that you be able to take all of this information and instead of just doing nothing with it, just basically pouring money down the drain, take and make it useful information in a multifaceted approach. And we'll talk a little bit about how important that approach is. So here's my question today. This is the question of the day. How many people think that a good KPI is a high or maximizing productivity? Show of hands. I do. Or a low KPI. Well, I do that too. So you're right in both cases, whoever raised their hand, but nobody raised their hand, so nobody was afraid. Everybody was afraid to raise their hand thinking this is a trick question, right? So, well, I'm just going to step back for a second and talk about dashboards and how important it is to view the information. When you look at dashboards, you're looking at this. It's a very simple little graphic. You're saying, geez, the markets and the economy, everything looks wonderful. This is great. But now I take a piece of paper, and I'm just going to flip this sideways. So think of it like that. I'm going to rotate it. And now I rotate it, same graph. And guess what? It doesn't look so good. Things aren't so good. So it is how you view information, and that's really important, the view and what you think of the information. And I'm just going to make this point a little bit further. And I talked about this a little bit last year, but I'm going to bring you up to date on what happened. The rest of the story kind of thing. There was this lady in the Massachusetts, anybody from Massachusetts probably heard about this, but she was in the crime lab, and her name was Annie Duca, and she was arrested because she was allegedly looking at samples for crimes, but they called dry testing, which meant she really wasn't testing them at all. And so her curve was the top line. Her productivity was measured on the number of samples she got through the crime lab. So the top line, she was 4 times ahead of the average worker. So they thought she was wonderful. She was twice as high as the next highest worker, and the average was the bottom line. So you can see the 3 lines there. But the point is that it was actually her coworkers that figured it out because they started watching her. They're like, why does she have such a high productivity? I know she works through a lot of lunches, but she can't possibly be 4 times faster than I am at looking at these, testing these samples. Well, she wasn't testing them at all. She was just looking at them, eyeball, and say, yep, they got cocaine. So anyway, there were 600 criminals who were released. It was a really bad scene in Massachusetts, and some of these people are back on the street, and some of them are real criminals. One has gone out and already killed somebody, but she pleaded guilty to the crime, and so she got off with less of a crime. But she's going to jail for 3 to 5 years. And this is a woman that in the middle of all this, the reason her productivity went down the middle was she actually had a baby. But she was still higher than twice as high as the average worker. So shouldn't that have said something to her supervisor? And the thing is with KPIs, you can't just look at one-dimensional. You have to look at multi-dimensions and multifaceted, and that's what I mean. The visualization is really, really important. So, and 83 have been rearrested. I mean, it's not a good situation. So that's why, again, visualization is really important. The dashboards are important. So you got to be careful what you measure and what you visualize, and good measurements still require intelligence. So that's why it's all about the intelligence. So I do have a survey, and I'm going to present that in part 2. This is meant to be a very short presentation. We have 3 speakers, and so hopefully they're going to give you what they're really doing in the real plants and in the real world. So it gives some real world examples of EMI. And I think it's going to be a really excellent session today. And I think part 2 will be just as good. So I'm hoping you come back for some of the survey results. So with that, I'd just like to end that and just summarize that it's important to, EMI can make you smarter. It can give you the intelligence that you need to make actionable decisions. and that people do waste too much time trying to find the information that they want. I know I do. And what they really need is the answers so they can make those decisions quickly. And all of these things are driving EMI. So with that, I'd like to thank you, and I really do appreciate, I want to mention that our speakers here today, because it is hard to get people out of operations today, and these people were really grateful for them for making these presentations.